Welcome to the fastest daf in town. Today we'll Masechtas Menachos daf Ayin Zayin. We're actually going to start with a new parak on the very bottom of Ayin Vav Amud Beis. HaToda, when it comes to the Toda, which of course we know has the 40 breads which accompany the carbon, so Haisaba Chamish Sayin, it comes from 5 Sayin, which are Yerushalmis measure, and Shehin Sheish Midbarios, which is 6 Midbarios. So we see there's an increase of a sixth between Yerushalmis and Midbarios. Fine. Shtei Ephois, Ha'epha Shalosh Soim. There was 2 Ephois, and we require that it come, and each an Epha comes from 3 Sa. Isaroin, so Esrainim. So the fact that we have 2 Isaroin, one is so Esrim. So Esrim Isaron. So there's 20 Isaron. Asar l'chametz v'asar l'matzah. So the way that we divide it is some of the taida, which is one of the exceptions that we allow chametz. So by the taida, we could have half for matzah and half for chametz, which seems pretty evenly distributed, but it's actually not the case, because there's 40 loaves, and 30 of the loaves are matzah, 10 of them are chametz, as we see on Ayin Zayin Aleph. Asar chametz isar l'chala, v'asar l'matzah umatzah sholosh minim. So 10 for chametz, and also isaron for the challah, and asara for the matzah. And the matzah, as we said, is 3 minim. Chalois, rekikin, revucha. So these are 3 different types of matzah, which are called chalos. One is rekikin, which we translated before as like wafers, and revucha is like scalded dough. Nimsu shleish esreinim b'shleish l'chomin v'min. So therefore, it turns out to be 3 1/3 for each of the minim. The sholosh chalosh li'isara. So that is the proportion. So it may have been a little bit choppy. Question 11 will help us out. Hatayda haisaba esrim isaron. So it's 20 isaron. So kama isaron mehem l'chametz, so kama isaron l'matzah. So there's 20 isaron. So what we did was 10 asara. There was esrim isaron, so 20 isaron. It's like a tongue twister, but it's 10 and 10. 10 for chametz and 10 for the matzah. But the chalos of chametz, there was 10, and there was 30 of matzah. So therefore, even though it's true, it was 10 esrainim each, right? Asara was chametz v'asara matzah. That's how the Mishnah said it. But even though it's true that asar was for chametz, the point is it was only 10 breads. However, when it came to the asar for the matzah, so there was 3 different breads, 3 different matzahs, which is 30. Nimsa shloisha asrim shloisha chol min. Okay, the sholosh chalois lisaron, the 3 chalos to lisaron. Uvamidir shalmis. So that was, we're saying, in your Midas Yerushalmis, which was 5 saw. So it says Hayu Shloishim Kav. There was 30 Kav. Chamisha also chametz. Chamisha also matzah. Again, we split it down the middle, half for chametz and half for matzah. Chamisha also chametz. 15 for the chametz. Kavu mechsa l'chala. A kav and a half for chala. Chamisha also matzah. And 15 for the matzah. V'matzah sholosh minim chalos rekikin revucha. Nimsu chameshus minin. We find that when it comes to chameshus kab and these 5 kab, the whole min v'min v'shtei chalos a kav. Okay, so it's basically, it's talking about, again, there's different measurements and it can go up in increments of a sixth, as the Gemara is going to discuss. Hataida haisaba chamesh sayin Yerushalmius. So how does the Mishnah know this, that an ephah is 3 sa? So Amar Chisda Dior Makra, because the pasuk says, "Va'ephah," with regard to an ephah, V'habas toichin echad yelochem. Now, bas is also some type of measurement, and we say it's the same thing. So, ma bas, just like when it comes to the measurement bas, shosh soyim, af efa shosh soyim. So, therefore, this is a raya that an efa is 3 saw. So, one second, bas gufim b'nolan. How do we know this measurement called a bas is also 3 saw? So, ilim, the pasuk says also over there in Sefer Yechezkel. It's Minach 7 says, law says, Meiser HaChaimer Habas. So that mentions over there the measurement. And Rashi says, Vabas Haisahu Netilos Maser al Chaimer. The Chaimer who Lamed saw. It says Chaimer was 30 saw. So if a bas is a tenth, right? A tenth of that, a tenth of 30. So therefore, it must be it's 1 ephah to 3 saw. So that's basically how we're learning it. So if that's how we know that, so ephah nami the haksiv, the pasuk says regarding an ephah, v'asiras ha'chaimer ha'ephah el chaimer liyadana kama. We don't know how much a chaimer is. So hachinami liyadana kama. We don't know how much a bas is. So how do we know the bas again is considered to be an ephah is the 3 saw, just like an ephah is the 3 saw. How do we know the same thing was with a bas? We don't even know a bas. El mahacha b'chaka shemen. When it comes to the measure of the oil for meiser, habas hashemen. So again, we divide into tenths. Meiser habas min hakur aseres habatim chaimer. Ki aseres habatim chaimer. So it's considered to be an aseres habatim is chaimer. 10 batim is 1 chaimer, right? So if 10 batim is 1 chaimer, that means again it's 1/10 of 1 bas is 1/10 of a chomer. So, and we know that a chaimer, as we said, is 30. So this is 3. Okay, Omer Shmuel. In moisivin alamida iseis mishtos. We don't add more than a 6. That's the highest that we go. There's otherwise a din ona that you can't overcharge. And also the coinage when we shift, it cannot be more than a 6th. And lastly, have a mistaker lishtar yosim mishtos. The one who is engaged in retail cannot make a profit more than a 6. That's the din. So my taima. What is the reason why you can't be moisif in your midas more than a 6th? Maybe because the price will end up going too high, says Rashi. Since the prices are going up, it's like inflation. So maybe the prices are just going to go up, and it's going to be a burden on the consumer. So then why do we use that as the threshold to decide what's considered to be acceptable? Even a 6th could cause problems. So why is that the determinate number? El mishum ona. Rather, it's because of ona. It's not because prices. There's just a din of ona. That when it kihechid, it will have a bittul mekach. So it won't become a bittul mekach. Because we know that's the din. That when it comes to a matter in which if I sell you something and it's yosim mishtos, bittul mekach, right? So if it's pachas mishtos, then the mekach is okay. And shtos also it's good, but you have to give back that difference. So in order to be able to keep the all the connectors moving, and all the traders and the retailers, we don't want any of them. We don't want a mekach to become bottle. So therefore, because of that, that's the cutoff. So we know that this rule is not the situation always, because if a person is makbid, so then if it's something in which is measured or weighted or numbered, so then even if it's less than, that will not help. So if in fact we can see the actual numbers in play, so therefore this shouldn't matter, even if it's pachas shtos. El mishum tigra, kehechedlo lemati diano. So this has to do with donkey drivers will buy a product, and we don't want them to take the loss, as he may not necessarily know there was an increase in measurements. So that is actually the reason. So Diana hudaloi lemate. So it's because of these drivers that we don't want them to lose out. So understand that they should break even. So Ravcha will boy. So you're telling me, but they won't make any profit. So Zavin v'Zavin Tigri. If you sell something for the same amount that you bought it for, that's not considered to be much of a merchant. You're not such a good business person that if you're buying it and selling it for the same price. Rather, it's because of a pasuk which he expounded upon, which basically, as Rashi says, it's a gzersa kasav, that this is the amount. The pasuk says a shekel esrim gera, that a shekel will be 20, esrim shkolim chamisha, so 20 shkolim chamisha, the esrim shkolim asara, v'chamisha shekel hamana yelochem mana. Mason, so 100. Mason v'arboyin havi. So the question is, that's actually 240. Says Rashi, Hare Shishim 60 Shkolim, Oisim Shishim Shkolim Yelochem Hamana, Vasela Arba Zuzim. So Hare Reshmem Zuzi Dinarim, that's 240. Bahaimana V'Karmelon, the Mana Deraisa Inu El Chavhei Sloim. We know that a mana is only 25 Sloim, which is 100 Zuzim. So how can we say it's supposed to be 100, so why do we get to 240? So what's going on over here? So Shema Mina, first of all, we see a few things from here. First of all, Elu Shema Mina Tola. Shema Mina Manishal Kaidish Kafel Haya. So what is considered to be 100, right? A month in the Torah, which is only 25 Sloim, which is 100 Zuzim. 100 Zuzim, here we double it to 200. Now, not only that, but how do we get to 240? That you could add, however, it can't be more than a 6. So what is the 1/6? So the 240, so the ratio to get to 1 over 6 would be 40 over 240. Okay? So therefore, what do we see? That's how you get to the number 240. Right, and therefore that demonstrates that it's 1/6. That's what we see in the pasuk. There's a cost that's what it's allowed, because even though it's 100, it's really 200. But we charge 240, which is 40 over 240, which is an extra. Like we're doing an extra 40 over 200. It's supposed to be 200, but it's 240. So the difference between 200 and 240 is 40. So to calculate a 6 millibar from the outside, 1/6 is 40 over 200, or 200 instead of 200, because it's kafel from 100 to 200 becomes 240. So therefore we see that that's okay. We see clearly that there is this amount of it being moisiv an extra 6th. That we see from the Mishnah. Okay, little bit of a challenging Mishnah, but nonetheless, hopefully, we got it. Okay. All right, we saw question 11. Let's see before we turn the daf. Let's see if there's another question. Okay. Okay. All right, let's continue with Omid Beis. Ayin Zayin Lebeis. Okay, we have another Mishnah, and we're going to go all the way to the next daf, until the next Mishnah. So the Mishnah says this, Mekulam, from all of them, which is referring again to the Lachmi Taida, in which you would, Truma. So you would take truma, like truma we usually think of like trumas and meisers for the kohen. So also the lachmi toida we also call a truma, that we take off 10% of the doughs, which are 4 from each of the 10, which is 40. Out of the 40, 4 given to the kohen, 36 remain by the baal. So we take 1 out of the 10 as truma. Shnemer v'hikru b'menu echad. We take off 1 mikol carbon trumas Hashem. So each of the karbanos of the 4 breads, we will take 1 off. Right. So echad, it has to be whole. Shoyitul porus, as we said before, because we said there was a sheet of Shmuel in yesterday's daf, that if you would take, instead of having it as tens, because everything's supposed to be in tens, except for maybe a couple exceptions when it comes to the Chaviti Kohen Gadol or the Lechem Apanim, but everything else is 10. So if you made it into 1, it was okay. It was just, what do you mean? How can you make it into 1? Because if you end up taking a piece off of a big loaf, so that's porous. So we said it's Melisha, it's all, you took it off while it was like 1 dough. So Shalitu porous, Mikol, carbon, Shiu Kol HaKarbanu Shavas. They all have to be the same. Shalitu Mikarbon Al Chavero, you can't take one from the other. Each one that you take from for the Kohen has to be for each of the different minim. L'Kohen Hazarikas Dam HaShlomim Liyeh. The one who zarik the dam of the Shlomim, it goes to him. This truma, this 10%. V'shar nechel balam, and everything else, the other 36 loaves, the balam eat. Tanurban. So the Gemara says like this: V'hikru b'menu min hamuvchar. So it says that you should be makriv it from the one place, from this one kli. Says Rashi, the be'inan shehu kol hachalos biyachad b'shas truma. They all have to be together. So echad shel yitol paris mikol carbon. It can't be different pieces. Shu kol karbonu shavos, as we saw in the Mishnah. Shel yitol min a carbon al chaver. You can't take one from the other. Truma la Hashem. Enu dea mikama he. I don't know how many I'm supposed to give off. So the din is like this. Hared done nemar kan truma v'nemar but trumas meiser. Also, when it comes to Trumas Meiser, which is Meiser and Meiser, which of course is a tenth. Meiser Sheni, Meiser Rishon is a 10th, and then Trumas Meiser and Meiser is a 10th from the 10th, that the Levi has to give 10% of his 10% to the Kohen. Malhon Echad Miyasara, Avkan Echad Miyasara. O Klach L'derachzu, maybe not. Maybe it's like this. Nemer Kan Truma, V'nemer Bibikurim Truma. Malhon Ein Lo Shir, Avkan Ein Lo Shir. How do we know? Maybe when it comes to just like the Bikurim, we say in the beginning of our davening, we say El Davar M'Shein Lahem Shir HaPe'av HaBikurim. So there's no shir of how much the Bikurim have to be. So maybe it's the same thing when it comes to the Lachmi Taida. So Niromi Daima. So done in Truma, maybe we should compare it to Truma. She'ein Achareha Truma. That there's nothing after it, because you give it, that's it. You give it to the Levi, and the Levi gives it to the Kohen, that's it. But Truma she'ein achareha truma, and compare it to again these breads, then that's it. It's given to him. Bikurim sheish achareim truma, but don't compare it to bikurim. And that sheish achareha truma, says Rashi Sharei Dayin yesh lahafresh kol trumoisav, because you didn't separate anything else yet, right? When it comes to bikurim, you just bring it to the base of mikdash. O klach derzu. Maybe the other way around. Done in Truma, Hanechelas B'Makom Kadosh, but Truma Hanechelas B'Makom Kadosh. Because Bikurim have to be eaten B'Makom Kadosh. Yochiach Trumas Meiser, Hanechelas B'Chol Makom. When it comes to Trumas Meiser, it can be eaten in any place. So Tabel Leimer Mimenu Truma LaHashem. B'Ksib B'Trumas Meiser Mimenu Truma L'Gzer Shavu L'Manu L'Truma Shehi Echad Miyasara. So it's clear that it has to be 1/10. 1/10, and therefore we learn out not from Bikurim, but rather we learn out from Trumas Meiser. So Aval Enu Yodeya Mekamahi Chala. How much flour is used to actually make the loaves? That's not so clear. So already done. Nemerkan lechem nemer holan b'shtei halechem lechem. It says by the shtei halechem lechem. So malu holan, we know when it comes to the shtei halechem that were the wheat. 2 breads, which are come in the Shnei Kivsi Aseres on Shavuos, Malahon Isar L'Chala, Davkan Isar L'Chala. So therefore, maybe it means it has to be an isaron. Or klach derech zu. Nemer kan lechem nemer belechem aponim lechem. Malhoan shnei sroinim avkan shnei sroinim. So maybe we compare it to the lechem aponim. Why do we want to? How do we know we compare it to the shtei halechem that it only needs to be an isaron? Maybe we learn out from the lechem aponim that it needs to be shnei sroinim. So nearly daima. Done in mincha haba chametz im hazevach im hazevach mincha haba chametz im hazevach. So, what is the only other thing other than the taida in which you also bring chametz? The only other thing is the shtei halechem. V'al yoichiach lechem aponim shenaba chametz im hazevach. Now, when it comes to lechem aponim, we don't bring chametz together with the zevach, right? It's matzah. O klach derech zu. Done in mincha haba eretz v'chutz eretz min hachadash umin hayashan. So maybe we should compare this, which is in Eretz Yisrael and chutz eretz, new and old. Min mincha haba mi'aretz v'chutz eretz umin hachadash min hayashan. V'yal yochiach shtei halechem. We know that we're specific with the shtei halechem shein bois el min hachadash. That has to come from the new grains. Umina aretz, that has to come from Eretz Yisrael. So Talmud Lomer Moshe Seichem. Taviu lechem tenuva shtayim. Shein Talmud Lomer taviu. Why does it have to say that word? Ma Talmud Lomer taviu. Shekol ma shiata mevi. That anytime you bring mimakom acher harihu kazeh, that it has the same dinim just like here. So malahoan isaron lechala avkan isaron lechala. So therefore, we learn out, in fact, from the shtei halechem, that in fact that the din, just like the shtei halechem is an isaron, so too when it comes to the taida is an isaron. So we learn out from that. So imalu holan shnei esrainim avkan shnei esrainim. So why don't we go further and say it has to be two esrainim? Talmud Lomer tiena lamanu asar chametz asar lamatzah. So it kind of is like that. We have two esrainim, but one is designated for chametz, one for matzah. So menayin. So Talmud Lomer, so avkan shnei esrainim. Talmud Lomer tiena lamanu asar chametz asar lamatzah. So menayin Talmud Lomer al chalos lechem chametz neged chametz haba matzah nimso esrim esrainim lachmi taida. So we see that there'll be actually 20 esrainim for all the breads, and that's asara lechametz v'asara le'matzah. Yachol asara shiba matzah lo yukulan el mimin echad. So you would think that when it comes to matzah, it should only be from one min. Talmud Lomer im al toidi akrivenu v'hikriv al zevach hatoida chalos matzos bulus b'shemen rikiki matzos b'shuchim b'shemen solos mirvechas. So v'gomer. So the pasuk clearly is talking about different types of minim. So nimsa shloish esrainim v'shish l'chol min v'min. There we end up having 3 esrainim and a third for each min. The shalosh chalos li'isarn. V'nimsu, and here's a key line, lachmi toida arbaim. The lachmi toida is 40. Noit mehen arba v'noisen l'kayin. Out of the 40, you have to give 44 to the kayin. The shar, the other 36, nechol l'bal. Amar mar v'hikruv mimenu min hamuvchar, that it has to be from the whole thing. El miyata dichsev yes kol chelbo yor mimenu. So hasam my mechor ika. How do we say that it's attached? So kid Rav Chisda Amar Ravimi, the Amar Rav Chisda Amar Ravimi shloyis nateach baser kodim shitel imorim. So this is actually coming to tell you that a person's not allowed to do the skinning of the animal, or to cut to the tuach, the cutting of the limbs, before the imorim were taken off. Okay, so let's slow down for a second. Let's look at question 12. So question 12 illustrates this. That it has to be whole. Where do we see that it has to be whole? So regarding trumas chalos of the tainas, we said that they all have to come together at the time when you're taking off the truma. They can't be in pieces. The whole has to be whole. Indian hafrasha, and you can't take a little piece of it. You have to give the whole piece. Indian hafrasha sachelev, when we're makriv the imorim, the sacrificial parts from a carbon, it has to be shiyeh koidim nituach. has to be before you cut it up. So therefore, it has to be whole, just like the toda has to be whole. Then you do the truma while it's whole. So too when it comes to the imurim, before it's separated. Omer Mar, Nemer kan truma v'nemer b'trumas meiser truma. V'neil b'trumas midyan. This is a gemara we had in other places. Why don't we learn out from trumas midyan? This question exactly what that means. We in the Rashi's where this is brought down. So let's see what it says over here. Trumas midyan dahavi echad menun 1/50. That's one sheet. I think there's another sheet. Maybe there's a Tysus. That's not over here. So done. So what? Maybe it's 1/50. So you say done in truma hano hegas l'dairis matruma hano hegas l'dairis. So it makes sense that it should be something which is a continual thing. For generations. That was like a one-time thing. So therefore, we don't learn out from there. Why don't we learn out from chala? And this Rashi says dehavi echad mi'arboyim b'shmoina, which is 1/48. So Tana Dever B'Shmuel done and davar shenember bo mimenu. As the pasuk says, Trumas Hashem medaber shnember bo Trumas Hashem. Okay, Hafuki Trumas Chalwa do nember bo mimenu. So it doesn't say mimenu Trumas Hashem. Okay, boy Rava Trumas lachmi toida. So we're calling this truma when you're separating. Right? So chayav lehem mis v'chaimish or eno chayav lehem mis v'chaimish. So what's the din? Is there mamish the same din as regular truma? Right? Does this separation of challah, which we call truma, to the kohen, does it have the same dinim? Does it have the same dinim as typical truma, like trumas, like meiser and a meiser, or trumas meiser? So that's the question. So in what ways would it maybe be the same? So the Gemara says like this: maybe there would be a din of misa, maybe there would be a din of chaimish, because if a non-kohen eats the truma, so there's an iser, there's a chiyuv misa, used to be the shemayim. And chaimish, if you use it, so then there's a chiyuv of having to pay an extra fifth. So this did actually apply also in this situation or not? So that's the question. So the trumas lachmi taida chayav lehen misa v'chaimish or ein chayav lehen misa v'chaimish. Givan de iskish trumas meiser. So maybe it is like trumas meiser, right? And therefore, ketrumas meiser dami, and therefore you are chayiv, right? Odilma boy v'chamishi sav miyat rachmana. It's coming to excludes trum the taida. Okay. Of the taida. Okay. Oh, enu fine. Midamas. Oh, enu midamas. Tegu. The second question is damas. So like regular truma, that it gets falls into chulin. So then you need a 1:100 ratio. So does that also apply here? So teku. Omer Mar, Talmud Lemer Tiena, my Talmuda. So what is this? How is this mashma that it should be 10 esrainis? So Omer Rabbi Yitzchak Bar Abdimi Tiena, and over there you have there's two yidin, right? And really you only need one, so one is extra. So the extra one is telling you 10 ksiv. So Ema Asara Kafizi, maybe it's 10 Kafizi, which are half kabin. So Amarava Be'esrainis Davar Kasav. The pasuk is talking about the measurement of esrainis. Lomanu asaro chametz v'asaro matzah menayin. How do we know that? Talmud Lemer al chalos lechem chametz keneged chametz haba matzah. That the same amount that's brought for the challah, for the matzah, which is 30, same thing is brought for the chametz, even though there's only 10. How can you learn one from another? So he says that this is not your typical situation, because this is a situation where it's himenu. Says Rashi, if we would have learned the whole din of chametz from the matzah, etc. So then that would be a problem. But that's not what's happening over here. So he made will have a hekesh. So it's not hekesh. So So the word taviu can be just an inclusion, and therefore that's how we learn the din. Okay, we're going to stop there, but let's maybe see another question. Question 12 we saw. So we saw that. Question TA 26. Trumas lachmi toidi alfin metrumas meiser dehavi echad miasara. That was the drasha. Le'inyan ma havi boya begamar alfin and trumas lachmi toidi metrumas meiser, and that of course is on Ein Zamen Beis, and that's TA 26, right? So the question is do we apply first of all the din of Misa or Chaimish, and also the din of Damas? Okay, let's see how he writes it. So we have to be falling into Chulun would be a 1 to 100 ratio. Darshinan v'eskol chelba Yomi menu min hamchuber. I think this is just a pretty straightforward question, which is TB29, right? So what do we learn out from min hamchuber? That has to be attached. So I wrote kol chalos shebatoyde srichan liyos biyachad hachel v'sarach lahasem behema koydem unituach. Okay, so that's the same thing. Chalos matzos b'shem. Nimsa shoshos this. Nimsa lachmitonu arboyim this. Right. So mimenu min mechuber. Yeah, that's mamish the drasha, and that's the answer. Which is the same as question 12 is TB29. So just like the breads, you're going to separate the 4 breads. They have to be all together. You can't take like one bread and break off a little piece for him. It's got to be a whole thing. And also when it comes to the imurim, right, or the chalev, right, the imurim. Also, you need to remove from the behema before nituach, before it's cut up. All right, let's see maybe another question. TC23. Oh, what do we learn out from that says, by the imurim v'eskol chelba yarim mimenu. So it sounds like this question is only about the imurim. Let's see what I wrote. Hafrasha's carbon, which is really, I'm talking about the imurim, right? Right, that's really talking about. I think that's a pretty fair answer. Probably I'll get full credit for that. Adkan.